Hey, what's going on, guys? Indie Pride here with Milk and Cookies Total War.
And this is Oakley HiDef, and I'm going to introduce the players right here. I am over on the right as Carthage. Indie Pride is in the center. He is going to be Egypt, and on our left is going to be Attila the Great. He also has another YouTube channel. I'll link those below. And yeah, he's going to be Pontus, as I said.
And then across from us, we're going to be playing against Rome, Carthage, and Athens. Jankadoodle, my friend, is going to be on Athens. Most of his army is hidden in the trees at the moment. Across from me, Sith Frozen BG is going to be on Carthage, and then Sith Piper is going to be on the Roman army. So, if we want to get in this replay, 3, 2, 1, press play. Let's get into it.
Alright. Yeah, so we'll get this started. We'll take a look at some of the factions, I guess, that's happening over here. So I'm looking at Attila on the left. So he's going to be pushing forward with 3 of these Scythian horse archers. That's almost always going to be your first move in these battles, is basically getting your mobile skirmishers out front, and then Indy's pushing up the center. And I'm going to push into the force, but at this point I have no idea what to expect from Athens, so that's kind of the wild card at this point.
Yeah, and that's going to be a really difficult fight for you, because Athens, as we know on this patch, hoplites are completely ridiculous in melee combat and last forever. So if you can't get your skirmishers shooting into those trees, and of course shooting into trees with skirmishers is very hard, that's kind of a difficult fight for you to take. So we'll see how that progresses later on. As for Attila the Great on Pontus, I absolutely love Pontus on this patch. They are really good. The Eastern Archers, insane shots per minute and really good damage as well. So he's going to be able to be looking to skirmish with Rome for a while. And he also brought chariots, which have gotten buffed massively on this patch as well. So if those make it into the Roman infantry line, he'll be doing a ton of damage there.
Yeah, we've seen those get over 600 kills before. Ellies somewhat, but you have to bring armored Ellies. Chariots, however, you get those in the line and they can shoot through any infantry block. And basically what we're looking to do in this first initial engagement is we saw this big, beefy pike line, and we're like, oh, we'll just concentrate fire on that. So Indy's got his mercenary Cretan archers. I've got my own archers on a heavy shot, and they're going to try and get some initial volleys. You can see that first pikeman, he's down by 5, but we're having some weird line of sight issues with forest and hills, and so our archers are actually going to get a little too exposed when they push up on that position. But I figured, archers would be able to take on the center position, because we're facing, just 4 Cretan archers?
Yeah.
So we have the numbers advantage, so we should be able to whittle that down. Once that's out of the picture, we can just charge through that and dismantle the center. So that was kind of our goal for the first step, I guess.
I actually didn't notice it when we were playing in the first battle, but he actually has 3 Cretan archers and a Balearic slinger. I thought they were all Balearics, so I engaged it a little bit differently, because I saw the one Balearic, and I guess I didn't take the time to look, but I do know the line of sight was actually a really big problem for us, because our Cretans should have been tearing them up at the beginning here, but that hill is just kind of making it hard for us to shoot over, and they don't really have great line of sight. So it was an interesting skirmish fight, and we're actually not doing as much damage as we probably should have been because of that hill.
But yeah, Indy here, you're doing a good job of doing a feint, just pushing these archers back, allowing us to get some more shots off and then fall back. And of course they're not going to fall for it. You can see how they kept some reserve Balearics to get some shots on us. So a lot of good strategic moves, and they're pushing forward with Tarentine Cav. Those are going to be a thorn in my side. You have these one unit up here, but the rest are slowly going to eke kind of their way around. If you look on the very east of the map, they're going to slowly get around our flanks. Meanwhile, I can't push into this force. I have no idea what is going on there, so I'm going to settle in on this position and just stagger my forces while we push the center.
Yeah, and over on Carthage's right flank, not you, but Frozen, Pontus was able to actually do a lot of damage to this pike unit, and you can see he didn't have the hill blocking his line of sight, so he destroyed that pike unit. And you can see the power of the Eastern Archers. They quickly dismantled that unit, and he's going to move on to some of the other Cretan Archers and some of the other pikemen as well.
Yeah, and look up and down that line. We're just getting all these feints, and our opponents are not having any of it, and that's just to force any of the Cretans back, allow us more time to get shots on. However, they are pretty much forcing the issue. If you look on my side, near the forest, they're charging forward with Citizen Cav, Hippeus Lancers, and they dual attack 2 of my guys. So one of my mercenary Scutari, pretty crap units, they're going to take a full Hippeus Lancer charge. That's fine. They were just meant to hold the enemy, but he's going to do a really good turnabout and disengage. And you can see how he's doing all these cycle charges with Tarentine Cav on my guys. Scutari right there were braced. I took off fire at will. You have to remember to do that to keep them braced. When I did that, they took no losses, so that was very beneficial. And I'm moving forward with pikes to help reinforce, and Indy's throwing in some of his own Citizen Cav to force that back. You can see all of the archers from Athens are being forced back too. We won't get too engaged at that front.
Yeah, at the moment, I'm trying to focus down some of his picked hoplites, and I actually noticed that his pikes had moved up a little bit too far forward for my liking. I didn't want to engage in a melee fight yet, because my line is completely comprised of regular pikemen, and African pikemen are going to beat them head-on in a melee fight, so I didn't want to engage in that right away. So I kind of just backed up and reshifted my lines. I realized that Oakley was going to get overwhelmed by all this cavalry coming in, so I had to help him. I sent a bunch of my citizen cav over to engage some of the Athenian cavalry on the right flank, and then up the middle I sent a couple of my Ptolemaic cavalry to tie down this Carthaginian cav that was threatening our archers. And if we lose our archers this early on in the battle, we're screwed. So we had to do our best to just commit all of our forces here and make sure that he didn't get through, because they really wanted to take out our Cretans at the moment.
Yeah, they basically threw a bunch of cavalry through the front, pushed through our gaps, pulled through whatever units were trying to hold them back, and they chased off our archers, which was a good move, like Indy said. And then you can see here on the very far east, they're charging in with more Hippias Lancers, more hidden units, just pulling through these woods. It's almost like barbarian invasion coming through here. But if we do wheel over to the other side of the map, in the center, it's the lines are starting to collapse. Rome is doing a good push with concentrated forces, and Attila the Great's line is just melting because of all of those javelins that they're getting forward. Plus the archers that are being kept in the back, they're just destroying Attila's line. So it looks like we're going to have to commit the chariots, which you can see them already starting to engage on some auxiliary, and they're going to get pulled through and try and stem the tide of Rome's advance. But they're also flanking with triarii, so this is going to be a major problem on that part of the battlefield.
Yeah, I had to commit my thorax swordsman over to the Roman fight because it was going to be a really big issue. Well, first off, I didn't need to engage with Carthage at the moment because he has a bunch of pikes, so those aren't very useful. Or they aren't very mobile at the moment, so like he can't really charge them forward and get into melee combat and reinforce people very easily. So I was like, I'll just kind of avoid it. I'll send a couple pike units to deal with one of his pike units, and then I'll send the rest of my thorax swordsmen to help Pontus win his melee engagement. But one problem here is going to be that Pontus commits his chariots and kind of sends them into a weird location. I actually can't... Okay, here they are. He pulls them through, and he wanted to hit the back of the Carthaginian pike line, which I understand, but the problem with that is that he needed to commit them to the Roman infantry line. That was where they could easily do the most damage and help him turn the tide of battle over there. Instead, he's going to send them over here behind Carthage, get them caught up in enemy cav, and they're not going to make their presence quite as felt as maybe they should have been.
Yeah, and he does get a nice pull through on that pike line, but like Indy said, they're already pretty wasted, so they already, he already destroyed that front. So they would have been better used on this huge Roman blob that's stuck on pikes. That would have been much more useful.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, on the flank over here, it's kind of chaotic. Some elephants were committed to that fight. I braced and had all my Cretans shoot them to death, so they weren't super effective, but it was enough to sort of break and force me back. So now I'm doing sort of a rudimentary defense force with my Sacred Band and my remaining infantry, particularly the mercenary Samnite warriors, very veteran troops. They're trying to hold the line, and I have some more pikes on the very right of my line holding that front, and I'm just trying to commit what few cavalry I have to try and clean up these engagements, strike at the back. But it's the countdown is sort of ticking for my guys. The archers in back of Athens is getting a lot of shots on my men, and I'm starting to be overwhelmed.
Yeah, so the engagement over here with Carthage and Athens is not going particularly well. What I realized was we had to kill Rome if we wanted to have any chance of winning this battle, and obviously that is very obvious. We have to kill one of the factions on the other team. But what I noticed is that like Carthage, I was still holding out with Carthage against some of my pike units. As you can see, he's running Balearic slingers and Cretan archers that are out of ammo onto the front of my pikes. I was like, we're gonna win this fight. I need to just pull what cav I have out and bring it over to the Roman fight, because if Pontus can take care of Rome without losing too many men, and we keep our cavalry alive, we'll have a good shot of winning this battle. But if we end up just losing on the Roman side of things, we're just not going to win the battle, period. So I decided to commit a lot of my troops over to try to take out Rome.
And we're all in group chat at this point, so I still have one of my mercenary companions who are still alive. They're going to rack up a lot of kills for me. So it was kind of in the group chat, us shouting about where we needed to put those crucial troops. And it was really a decision, do we commit them to the east or the west? And I think we made the fateful decision to send more forces over to the west and try and clean up those Romans. Had we still had chariots, you can see right now they're engaged in some of the Roman lines. Had they been there earlier, I think we could have probably sent in enough reinforcements to clean that up.
Yeah, I think that was actually a big mistake, and I'm not trying to blame Attila for anything because I do think he played well in this battle. But
yeah,
I think
they have 300 kills right now.
and they've made a big impact on this battle, no question. But I think if he had quickly gotten into that Roman line, he wouldn't be losing these units over here at the moment.
But yeah, if we want to track some of our cav running around, you can see my mercenary companions are starting to scoot around, and they're going to help us land some of these strikes. So it looks like we're starting to turn the tide here. You can see some of the Roman blobs starting to waver, so we were thinking we'd be able to liberate this. But if you go back over to my side, it's, you know, less and less of my units holding out, and, you know, one by one they'll start wavering, flicking, and starting to rout. But I can hold out long enough. But against these hoplites, I'm not going to be able to kill them. So it's really, you know, this front is waiting to see what happens on the other side.
Yeah, and while we are doing a good job, like we're surrounding a lot of these Roman units, they're Evocati cohort, and as you guys know, on this patch, they last for forever. Melee fights last for forever. Even what I noticed in this battle, and I didn't really get a good picture of it, but auxiliary infantry, like they're crap tier units, and they would lasted against Pontic swordsmen and thorax swordsmen for upwards of 4 to 5 minutes. So it's kind of insane how some of these units last, and it became really difficult for us because we were getting surrounds on these units and like doing a good job of hitting them from multiple flanks and angles, but they're Rome, they last in melee for a while, and we just weren't able to route them as fast as maybe we would have liked.
Yeah, so Rome was able to reform. He cleaned up his side of the battle. We still have some noble blood cav and Egyptian, you know, Ptolemaic cav scooting around, but for the most part, Rome cleaned up that flank, and now he's pressing the advantage, re-engaging where we had, like, encirclements. He's going to try and break that. Chariots are recommitting to the fights. They'll get some more kills. Meanwhile, if you take a look at the center of the battlefield, there is some of Attila the Great, his Pontic roll cav, that's his general, charging into these mercenary Cretan archers. I have my mercenary companions, and we decided to shift our focus to the other side of the battle. Because my guys were starting to rout. You can see in the middle of the forest, I lost one group of units. One of them is drawing away 3 units from the battlefield before he could rout. And the rest of my units, we have him pinned up. So if we can land some decisive strikes with cavalry, we could hopefully liberate those guys and come back and save the right side. That was our goal. But these archers, they're pretty cheap, but they were a thorn in our side. They got so many kills.
They each got about 100 kills, yeah.
Yeah.
So they were a problem, and yeah, you're right. I think taking out these archers when they're undefended was a really good idea. One problem is actually your mercenary companion cav are not running, they're walking, and finally you got them under control and you're going to charge them in. So that should be an easy fight for them. As you guys know, taking out blobs of archers in this patch is scarier, but if you're going to do what Athens just did, where you keep all of them in one big blob, they won't be able to fire in on the companion cav, and he's going to end up losing all of those archers. So these two units both have a ridiculous amount of kills. The Pontic Royal Cavalry have 300 at this point, and the companion cav are closing in on 300 as well. So you obviously both microed these cavalry units very effectively at this point.
Yeah, and we have our sights on the rear of that line, and you can see exactly Athens knows what's coming, so he's positioning some Thureos spears to try and save his guys. And so I'm going to go, you know, to the right of them. Attila's going to go to the left. However, he's engaging on a group that was just finished up the fight. Had we arrived there, you know, maybe 30 seconds earlier, I think we might have been able to crack that.
Yeah, but he turned it around in time, and he wasn't braced, but there's still spears, and spears beat cavalry in a prolonged melee fight, especially hoplites. So he is actually going to go into the red morale, but he's not going to waver, and Attila's going to have to pull that Pontic Royal Cavalry out of that fight if he doesn't want to lose that cav unit.
Yeah, and you can see how my guys, like I said before, are going to start slowly one by one crumbling, and we really needed these cav earlier in the battle, but you know, they were justifiably used on the left side of the battle to help out. But like Indy was pointing out, with the Evocati, who could hold out for just so long, there at this point, this flank was lost anyways.
Yeah, and the problem is now at this point, because a lot of the Carthaginian forces have already routed, and it's basically just cavalry, not even really hammer and anviling, because there's no anvil, it's just the cav going into hoplites. There's nothing they can do. I mean, you can keep cycle charging, but eventually, like what happened now, you're going to rout, and it's just not going to be enough to rout hoplites. They're heavily armored, they can resist cavalry charges very easily, and they're just not going to make the impact we want them to. So we're going to end up routing, and that battle is over. We made some mistakes, there's no question, but let's go to the battle screen and see what the stats were. So yeah, I had 1,500 kills, Oakley had 1,400, and Attila had 2,100. What units, I guess if you had to succinctly say what was the problem with that battle, what mistakes we made, what would you say they were?
I think the biggest problem would be maybe in the center we weren't able to kill the pikes. That was our first problem. If we'd been able to shred that, we would have, not had to worry about the center. Second problem was on my side. I couldn't quite see what was going on with Athens. And then when they finally struck, the enemies had a really good blow. They basically charged in with all their cavalry, infiltrated the gaps, pulled through, charged on all sides, and got our archers. So that basically got rid of our archer capability, pressed the advantage. Then they threw in elephants, so it was chaos on the right. On the left, I think Attila waited too much with his pikes on the front line and thin rows. He should have pulled back and delayed. Those guys got shredded by the legionnaires who were having all their pilla exhausted without losing a single man. I think if he'd done some delaying action, we could have stabilized that front, crushed the center, and committed some of those cavalry that were sent to that left side, committed those guys instead to the right, even that up, and then maybe won, and then dealt with Rome last. And then, like you said, if you want to talk about the chariots a bit, but I mean, you can't really bash Attila. He got the most kills, so.
Yeah, I mean, and there's no question he did really well, and yeah, he almost got 400 kills there. The problem was I think the kills the side chariots got weren't on the correct unit, and I wish he was in here with us to talk about what he was thinking when he did what he did, because it wasn't, no, and it wasn't, because I'm not saying it was a bad idea, because it wasn't, because it killed a bunch of pike units and made my melee engagement easier, but I think chariots in general, you don't want to commit them to pike units, because when they pull through, if you don't quickly pull them out the way you came in, they can actually run back straight into the pike unit, and I'm not actually sure if I saw that happen, but that might have happened, and it might have caused some HP loss that made him harder to do more damage later on in the fight. I know for a fact, because Rome didn't have a lot of spears, if we look at his army, he had 3 auxiliary infantry, and all those were engaged earlier on in the fight, so his chariots getting into the Evocati cohort would have changed that fight completely, because a lot of them were tied down. You hammer an anvil with side chariots on this patch, everything dies. So while the chariots did amazing and Attila played very well with his horse archers, with his pikes, again, we all made some mistakes here, but I think his chariots getting into the Evocati cohort would have changed the outcome of that battle.
Yeah, and we can look at our opponents basically. So Sith, Frozen, with Carthage, he got a pretty decent spread of kills, but like I said, I think we shredded his pikes pretty well. And those guys did not end up getting too many kills. So I think, we had the best opportunity to crack him. But it was mostly, I think, Athens just destroying my side. You can see Hippeus Lancers, Tarentine, and Citizen Cav. Those are the ones who I said stormed in and smashed my front, with the archers going uncontested in the back, getting lots of kills. And then follow that up with the Thureo's spear rush and pick hoplites. And he was just able to, strike us while we were sort of had our head wobbling. He comes in and pins us against the wall with those spears. So that was, a really good strike, and you can see he got the most kills. Then Rome really sticking it to us with those Evocati, always getting, very, very good kills.
Janka played really well with Athens, I think. The Tarentine Cav with almost 300 kills is insane. I missed it in this battle. I didn't catch it on the camera, but he told me that he actually, I believe he sent that Tarentine Cav all the way over to Pontus and killed a bunch of his archers, and I believe all those archers had a lot of ammo left, so that Tarentine made a huge impact, and for their cost, that's ridiculously good. Yeah, he played really well. My skirmishers just didn't make the impact on the game. I think they should have. Like, I only had 3, so I didn't have as many as Carthage did, but me and Oakley together had plenty enough skirmishing power to kill Carthage. The problem was, again, that they got some of their cavalry into our archers, and I didn't have a line of sight. Now, I actually didn't lose my Creans to cavalry at all until I was out of ammo. I actually pulled them out of the fight, but again, that line of sight was a big problem for me because they just didn't fire and kill as effectively as maybe they should have.
Yeah, the kills on my archers they're there. Like, they started getting the kills, but after that our enemies did a really good job, not only in this battle but future battles, which we'll commentate, of really going after, one of our army's archers and just silencing them. So you can see that on my kills for my archers. They did that effectively. And then I learned the mercenary Scutari.
Trash?
Yeah, don't bother bringing that. They kind of collapsed my line. But they were sort of fodder. They went up against the full brunt of the enemy cav charge, so they sort of soaked that up. But yeah, I could have brought better units, I think. Even my Sacred Band only got 79. I would have wished they had done better than that.
I don't know what the cost for mercenary Scutari is, but I think that cheap spears or cheap hoplites is probably a better option if you're going to play as Carthage, because those Scutari just aren't going to kill anything. and they die quickly, whereas the cheap hoplites now don't die very quickly. So I think that might have been a better option, but again, I don't think that has anything to do with why we lost that battle. There were other issues, but it was a really good game. I think our opponents played really well. And do you have any last thoughts about that battle?
No, we'll see you guys in the next one.
All right. Hope you guys enjoyed. I'll talk to you all later. Any Pride signing out.